It is a temptation, though. Reach across the podium.
Countdown.
What's the worst that can happen?
Oh, we've seen that. We're going. Welcome to the City Council Finance Committee meeting of Thursday, October 17th, 2024. Two items on the agenda. The first of these is discussion regarding the capital improvements for the Sooner Theater. Is that you?
Now, I'll start off, and they, my friends over here, James Briggs and Jennifer Baker, who has been in charge of the Sooner Theater or at the Sooner Theater for, heck, I don't know, long time. They'll interject when I start, like I get stuck or I'm making something up. But Sooner Theater, just to let you know that the reason the Parks and Rec guy is talking about it, Sooner Theater, along with the Santa Fe Depot, Firehouse Art Center, and the Historical House in Norman, all fall underneath the Parks and Recreation Department as historical cultural centers. So we are very excited to have those, and it offers a lot to our very diverse park system. Not only do we have parks, recreation centers, but we do have a portion that is arts. And when I talk to people that, I want them to know that Norman's not just about sports. We have a lot to offer. So as we're going to hop into this, I'm going to give you a quick history about the Sooner Theater. Then we're going to show you some ADA deficiencies. And part of the reason this has come up through our AIM discussions, through the master plan of the park system, and even some discussions with a separate group that's resident ran about Norman Forward too. These cultural centers are a very popular topic of conversation, so we just want to make sure that we're prepared if we do have a bond type election or a Norman Forward type thing that comes up. But let's talk a little bit more about Sooner Theater history. It was constructed in 1929. Of course, this is way before the American Disabilities Act of 1990. So it was originally built as a movie theater. It doesn't have a whole lot of extra space to build sets or do other things. That's the kind of reason you see a confined space. Jennifer, when we build a set over there, sometimes it can take up to 45 days to build a set to get ready for a show. And when you have a short show run, even if it's a few weeks, that does take up a whole lot of time for not being able to do a whole lot in that building. It was gifted to the city in the 80s by a concerned citizens group wanting to make sure that the building would not get demolished. A little bit more history from when the city took over. There was multiple code issues, as you imagine, inheriting a building in the 80s that was very old. And we're trying to figure out a purpose for this in the 1980s. Finally, we decided that it would be best served as a theater space. We also did concerts, a lot of community events, and even movies in there. And then eventually, later on, we honed in on a performing arts space and even started more renovations. These are just some of the pictures, more current pictures. And James can probably go a little bit more into a lot of detail. He does all of our capital projects when we're over there at the Sooner Theater. Of course, this first one's kind of looking directly onto it. What kind of architecture would you?
That is a Spanish Gothic revival. That's what we're dealing with there. Harold Jimeno was the architect, and when we were doing some of the interior stuff in particular, we're trying to match a lot of those details, like when we replaced the carpet, some of the ends of the aisles, the seats are all custom. We tried to find the original manufacturer from the Chicago area, but they're out of business on the seats. But things, you're looking at the stage there, that grand drape in front, it's just one of about 20 different curtains that are up on that stage. There's a mid-stage traveler, there's legs and borders all over. We replaced those a few years ago with, you gotta get inherently fire-rated material in case there's accidents. That stuff is going to be due for a replacement too, because people touching them, the grand might survive a little longer than some of the legs and borders. But those are things that, as the owner, we have to maintain. We sprinkled the building years ago. Every inch of that place has a sprinkler head somewhere, including a deluge curtain above the stage in case there's a fire. It just dumps water continuously. So knock wood, that never happens. But yeah, I don't know if there's other photos or other things. Yeah, that carpet is not the original carpet. When Jennifer and them were in it, it just had this sort of awful blue stained carpet that had been put in there because the original carpet was fantastic. You can see old photos of it. So we got with our Shaw carpet representative, and they found a pretty good match for the style and sort of the crest details and the things that we do. So we're trying to do a little bit of preservation architecture. The old Sooner Sweet Shop sign we found in the building recently, so we mounted it up in the mezzanine level, and they have a lot of their, but looking out that window, you know, you can't replace that stained glass with just anything. And a lot of the, even the chandeliers in there, a lot of these details were built custom for this building by the architect and or his craftsman. So,
and the building's so cool to walk into, and it's just like a piece of history. It's, if you have free time, it's just awesome to walk through there and spend some time looking at the ceiling, looking at the other details. They don't make buildings like this anymore, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's a treasure to our community, not just because it's a great performing arts area, and my daughter's been in several plays out there, and man, it's so cool. Everything that the building serves as a historical area, and also serves the whole community from adults to children, just doing a variety of entertainment things. So when you kind of look back at our history of capital improvements since we took over the building, kind of like what James said, we put brand new HVAC in there, fire suppression systems throughout the building. We created dressing rooms. We took an old basement that was underneath the stage, turned it into dressing rooms, new seats, new stage riggings, curtains. He already went into that. We kind of made sure that the architectural details of the building were preserved. Brand new roof, tech upgrades. There's so many things in there. My daughter performs at Sooner Theater is intense on some of the shows, especially their summer shows. So she does some things at other performing areas, theaters around. And there, I will tell you that when you go watch a performance at the Sooner Theater, you feel like you're at a mini Broadway performance, because the sound is great, the lighting's perfect, and the positioning and the sets that they do is so much more high scale than any other community theater around here. It's just that they do an awesome job at everything that they do.
that's a credit to Jennifer and their
Yeah.
staff. Yeah, because I mean, you go to some kids' productions and it's kind of like a T-shirt show where all the kids just have like matching T-shirts and they're doing that, but full costume, full makeup. I one time mistakenly said to Jennifer something like, "Well, that's just a kids show," and she's like, "Stop me!" I said, "No, all the shows are shows. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's a kids show or if it's, you know, full, you know, cast, adults and everyone. It all gets the same treatment." So I mean, he's right. I mean, just seeing these shows, I have nieces and nephews throughout the countryside and other places, and they're cute little great shows, but they haven't gone that extra, you know, level of like committing as if it's just a full on. Everything's a full production. So
And
good job, Jennifer.
My daughter did, just to brag on you a little bit more, not that I need to, but the Nemo Junior, I went to 7 out of 9 shows that they had in over a week period. And there's something that you discovered, just little details that they are very intricate and pay so much attention to every single time. It was you just sitting there and, you know, you think by the 7th show you'd be like on your phone and stuff, but you're just sitting there going, wow.
They put pressure on us.
Impressive.
Yeah, we gotta keep doing things like the ramps and the seating areas.
Not to mention how genius it is to have a junior show and have 9 shows to go along with it. So every single one of those parents are showing up at least
Only
5
thing
or
that makes
6
money.
times. Also, we have upgrades to improve ADA, which we'll go over a little bit more in
Yes, we could.
remodel of the suite shop, seat replacements, and we did some temporary accessibility resolution when or as needed. As we said, this is a very old building. We don't necessarily, just because of the age of the building, as long as we don't go through there and make drastic changes, we still don't have to fully comply with ADA standards just because of the age or current ADA standards. We do as best as we can in the space that's provided, but it is not possible in some of these areas to do that without running the historical integrity of the building. These are just going over real quick some of the capital improvements that we made. So that's, you see a new roof, the updated suite shop, stage rigging in the back. We did some plumbing in the lobby, which is always a treat when you, it probably gives everybody panic attacks when you pull back carpet and start cutting holes in the floor and throwing dirt everywhere.
Oh, that was fun.
It was during COVID, so it worked out really nice for us.
Jennifer, you want to talk about, I know that y'all got a large grant from, or pretty good sized grant from the Oklahoma Arts Council.
And we did, a few years back, we got the Impact Oklahoma grant, which we were able to upgrade a lot of the sound and lights. when they did the renovations in 2000, and it was right before I got there, 2001, 2002, I guess bids had changed by the time things happened, and it was just more expensive, and so they took out a loan to get the light board and soundboard. They got that, but they didn't have any instruments to go with it. So that grant allowed us to get the majority of the lights that you see in there today.
This is kind of what we're talking about a little bit. Where we could, we tried to take it up above ADA standards, but like this house access ramp, had to take out a few rows of seats to add that in there, but making sure people can get from the top down to the bottom if they need help getting down there through crutches, wheelchair, or any other reason. Going a little bit into our function issues that we have, besides accessibility, the programming and staff has grown well beyond the spaces there. They are packed. When you're talking about packed, and there's other community groups that want to do a show in there, it's nearly impossible between everything they have going on there, between the junior shows, the other shows that they have to fit somebody in. They have no room to basically build a stage. It's an old movie theater. When you go look at the Civic Center or something like that downtown, they have areas where they build stages somewhere else in the building. They're literally building the stage on the stage as it goes. Sometimes that could take up to 45 days to make that happen, and also it takes several weeks to as they're tearing it down, because they want to preserve that stuff in case they ever do the show again in the future. We got some operation and maintenance issues that still remain. Periodically flooding down in the basement. It's a very old building. We get heavy rains, or even if you have a air conditioning or HVAC issue, condensation, anything else kind of leads to a multitude of problems that could happen down there. And not to mention the getting, in which we'll go a little bit more as we show you some more pictures, but just getting people down. If you have small children or people that are handicapped that's trying to get into the dressing room space, it is near impossible. It's hard to get a wheelchair down there. The pathways to get into some of the areas backstage or even below the stage are not anywhere close to being ADA standard.
There's a sump in the basement and it works a lot, but it shouldn't have to work so hard.
So we'll kind of to hop a little bit more into our function issues. Line for restrooms. There is not a whole lot of restrooms inside that building, so when you have a show, how many seats you got?
535, use the balcony,
345 on the floor.
Yeah, so when you have 400 or 350, 400 people in there, and you have 6 toilets in the building, it's not highly functional. And still, these are older bathrooms that have been existing since its beginning. They are not ADA accessible to get in there or get into the restrooms. It's very difficult if you're in a wheelchair.
They are accessible to a degree, so they're not non-compliant. They're just low end accessible.
So when you talk about coming into the building too, we do have transitions that are difficult. We also don't have an elevator that goes up to the top. We only have staircases for the balcony levels. Just kind of looking more into more operations, not ADA issues, but these are kind of talking about the stage access. We went back there, added a garage door a while back, and also just going up to the stage. When you're walking onto the stage or off to the stage, these are your paths, and like we were talking about, they're not very wide. And also coming in off of Jones Street, this is kind of your step down, entering into the stage area.
Yeah, the point being, there's no way for a disabled performer to get to the stage without that lip coming off of Jones or coming up those stairs from the floor. So I think you had was it Leon Russell? You had to build a dressing room on the stage.
So just to add to it, last year we had 2 students in a wheelchair, and it caused a little. We were a little nervous, but we also have 2 special needs classes, and getting them across this threshold into the stage area is really difficult. And I think that's when a lot of this came about, is because of these ADA issues. But yeah, that's a problem during our shows, getting them in. And they can't not get into the dressing room.
We've hit the building, the stages take several weeks, and also past attempts to start water if you get a lot of water flowing from either a storm or another plumbing problem from another building. It kind of pipes perfectly right into the back of the Sooner Theater. These are our dressing rooms downstairs. As you can see, this is a basement, was not intended to be a dressing room at all. We've done what we can. We've added HVAC down there. A lot of times, if that HVAC does not work properly, that room will either heat up or cool down rapidly. So always have to make sure that we're prepped and ready to go for when they have shows. Also, James hit the sump pump down there, but these are also just little pictures of the restrooms that we have for performers.
It's definitely a short ceiling. I feel like I have to duck down there, so.
No tall actors allowed.
So kind of talking about this, what we're going to suggest at budget season is a master plan. So like I said, if there's a Norm Forward 2 opportunity or some kind of other funding mechanism that ever comes available, we will have at least a concept in hand to make sure that we have a idea how much it costs or what direction we need to go in. So there's possible solutions. One is Mr. Roberts building, which we've had discussions with them, and every time we've talked to them, they're always saying they want to give the building to the city or sell the building to the city, but they're just not ready or prepared to do that yet.
And it's just that little strip right next
Yeah, we
door.
got a
It's
slide
not
that'll
the
show the
whole.
one, yeah.
Also, another idea which we have kicked around is Jones, especially as we start expanding to a two-way gray and a two-way Main Street, Jones becomes less and less useful. There is the chance of probably closing down Jones and expanding there towards the west. Our goal is to, of course, provide more an accessible restroom, better stage access, ground level dressing rooms for performers, a place to build stage, expand the lobby area, expanded concession and possible bar access for the adult shows, increased capacity for modern theater production technology, expanded backstage and dressing rooms. Of course, we've hit all that stuff, and anything we can do to improve the technology to go along with that, Wi-Fi improvements, accessible routes going in and out of the building, and multiple floor access, and basically if we could,
Elevator.
especially if we can get to Jones area sooner, at some point or another, we can put an elevator in there that gets us to the balcony. So these are just kind of some of the areas that we're talking about, and this is just us thinking inside our office. We're not architects. Oh, I'm not an architect.
Hey.
James is an architect, so I apologize for that. So the yellow box over there is kind of the area if you expand on Jones and close it down once you get the two-way main and two-way gray going. We think that is a definite possibility. That red box is Mr. Roberts, which is to the east of that, which is also a possibility. That's 2 stories. And if you look towards the back of Mr. Roberts, if we were somehow to gain that area, that little blue wall you see right there, that's a prime space to possibly build stages.
Close that.
Close that in and build stages.
They haven't built full length.
Other things that we, of course, we're highlighting Mr. Roberts, that's the building right next to it. We need better accessible entries. Those doors are historic, so if we do some way get a new entry into that, we want to make sure we preserve those doors going into the building. I think I repeated one of the pictures here, so I apologize that. And of course, that's just kind of if you do close down Jones, the possibility of expanding there towards the west and looking at the back of the building. And of course, we would make sure there's still, if Jones did close, we still make sure that there's a path to the restaurants and shops there, and make sure to keep that alley open for that. So just basically to ask these are all the things that are coming to the forefront as we do our AIM and start talking about a Norm Forward 2. Very soon future, we want to ask for a master plan for Sooner Theater as soon as the next budget cycle. probably sometime in the future before we hopefully get to a Norman Ford 2 vote. We also have plans for Firehouse Arts Center, Santa Fe Depot, Edwards Park area, Moore Lindsay Historical Museum. And possibly there's a lot of talk about the chapel at old Griffin Hospital land, seeing if that fits in as a cultural center or if that would be a private project currently ongoing, which is also some of the Norman Ford 2 discussion is about Norman Art Council building a new studio. They have a lot of ask that goes along with that. We don't know where that would be, but just saying they want a performing art area, so kind of expanding the possibilities to do things besides shows. They also want incubator space for artists, several other things that you can add in their offices for other art groups around town that currently don't have an office or a contract with the city that provides them a building. Classroom space that could be possible for doing a number of things. So these are just a couple of things in the future. Love to take some questions about Sooner Theater or anything that we talked about there at the end.
The space that's across the street, I forget what that's called. The studio.
That's the studio. That's, that's our, just had a kind of leap of faith. Years ago, we rented a building, the old University Theater down, I think it was Hyde Drug, growing up in Norman, but down.
By the German restaurant.
Yeah, by the German restaurant. We rented that for years and it was just kind of, it needed help and we outgrew it.
Oh, don't
And
forget
so-
about Whittier either.
Oh, yeah, we started at Whittier too. And so when this space came available, which was across the street, it was the old Danny's TV in Norman. We went ahead and purchased that. We're paying off a mortgage forever.
How much is that note?
Oh my gosh, I know we pay about $6,000 a month. And we're busting at the seams there now, but we're grateful for it. It's been a game changer for us.
Beautiful.
We have a little space upstairs that we planned on renting out a lot for events, and we do occasionally, but now we're having to use it as a classroom. So, because we had, just last year, had over 1,200 enrolled. So.
Well, is it worth talking about the idea of rolling whatever the balance is on that note into this whole project, or are you just leaving us two separate?
Can the city pay off their
Could the
mortgage,
city,
is what you're saying?
If that's what we wanted to do.
it could be done, yes, and will of the council.
Can you mix bond money with Norman Forward money to get a project done? Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
I am interested in exploring master plans for cultural centers, and I like the list that's up there. I know that we asked RDG to master plan Griffin and keep that chapel in mind for an arts cultural center. I could see if it's not big enough for everything they envision, that there would still be room to build next to it. Yeah, that's just all I have to add on that.
And I think there's a couple discussions, not necessarily with Norman Art Council directly, but some of their board members have mentioned that would be a great spot for a future building and possible small new art district, and it makes sense to have the chapel next door to whatever their new building would be.
Well, I was gonna say, I know somewhere in this grand scheme of master plans, that there's a hotel idea thought for Griffin. So if you think about the fairgrounds down the way, downtown, having another arts cultural center, I just see that having synergy with the hotel that's in that area.
That'd be great.
Yes, sir.
The studio was my former place of employment, Astronomics, and the Beeler family, when they bought it from whoever owned it when it was Danny's TV, and restored the second floor windows and everything and did all that. And then they went back to their old warehouse because they were basically 99% internet-based business, but founded in Norman, locally family-owned. Figured out that space wasn't what they needed for their business, and so it was exciting to see it go into the hands of the studio of Sooner Theater Company. And but I'm assuming you're not able to like do sets there and then like roll them around the block to the back of the theater, and
That was,
so it's
that was kind of my dream when we found it, because there's a little garage back there and it doesn't work.
yeah.
It's not set up. So it's storage right now, which we greatly need because there's not a lot of,
Say it's full, isn't it?
yeah, it's full. But yeah, I thought that would work. We'd also, at one time, we were given a space over on Gray Street, donated space that we could build a little there and bring it over, but renting the trucks and not having, it was hard. We need a scene shop, but we tried. We exhausted all those
yeah.
thoughts, thinking we could do it, but
I know crossing the street right there isn't
it's hard.
with Jones, people turning onto Main from
Yeah.
Jones, people coming across the tracks, people trying to, and 3 lanes in one direction of
Yeah.
fast-moving traffic, which hopefully won't always be like that. But I know that's a challenge for.
It is, and we have to, we walk the kids down all the way to the next block to cross them over in the crosswalk, and then back down to the studio. So anytime we have to, no, I don't do that, but I
It's a good
mean,
workout.
the kids do, you know,
Good
they walk
exercise.
around.
The one question though, at Art Walk, I noticed the marquee was gone. Is it just getting
The
fixed?
sign, yeah, the neon sign, it was gonna be back this morning. It's been up at Dalmark Signs, those are the ones that originally built it. So they've had it, it's shining like a star, and when you see it, it's totally redone, all the electrics are working,
All the lights are-
repainted, all the sockets
Clocks
are
are
burning
working.
in, clocks are back. So it's gonna look, if you saw the original, go to the last picture, Jason, that one's gonna come down, the one where this is the marquee, cause it's gonna look completely junk when this new one goes back up, when the
Discolored.
refurbished. So it's gonna go back to Dalmark, we're gonna take it, we plan on working on them
That
separately.
specific one, that's gone.
That
The
very
new
one is gonna
going.
come down, so the one above it will be back tomorrow. It was gonna be back this morning, but the driver called in sick or something crazy from Dalmar. So they're gonna take that one, and we're either gonna fix that one, put it back up, or maybe look at putting up a digital one. So we're gonna see, because modern theaters have modern digital marquees, that way Jennifer can sit in her office and say, buy tickets now for this, and then tomorrow they can put
Well-
happy birthday Stephen Tyler Holman on it.
Make it, yeah.
One of the thoughts that kind of backing what James is saying, the cost of those LED boards, which we have one at YFAC and one at Westwood right now, are not as expensive as they were 5 or 6 years ago. So we think we could duplicate and even make that the marquee as the background on an LED screen.
Yeah, the static
and
picture.
have an ability to rotate shows and
To
things
make
on
it
there.
look, historic.
Yep.
And then, because those light bulbs being out is a thing I've always, is it always an issue trying to keep them on?
We kept trying on the big sign, and then we found there was so many of them out, 'cause they'd come and Waters would come down there with a bucket truck and replace bulbs, like, hey, there's, 7 more sockets are out, because I think there's 128 bulbs on that sign. So
both
there's,
sides.
if you count both sides, so we were to the point where we had like 40-something bulbs at the sockets. So I said, let's just rewire the whole thing, let's paint it, and they replaced a couple of pieces of neon letters, and then everything else it's gonna be dazzling, starting tomorrow, I hope, barring wind or another sick driver. Should be back on the building.
I did notice that on Friday, so that I'd ask you. But, how common, is it for the city, all these, I was just at the Midland Theater in Kansas City Tuesday night, and it was just, if you've never been inside of it, we were taken aback by how amazing it was on the inside, and all the features it had. How normal is it or common is it for the city or municipality to own one of these old theaters and be the entity that takes care of it as far as capital investment?
And I think that's the reason you're kind of seeing the push for like a thing like the chapel. It's very common. You go to any city, there's probably 30 in Oklahoma that's owned by, as a local theater owned by the city. It's just, there's not a whole lot of just to put it frankly, the investment inside these centers, there's not a whole lot of chance to gain your capital back in a quick possible to make it profitable. So it makes sense for a city to buy that, fix it up, make it absolutely beautiful, and then the give back is, you know, the community owning that, and you have more of a opportunity to have a theater space and community programming inside those buildings.
And, because you mentioned too, a group of concerned citizens, but the city came together and saved it from being demolished. And many cities have demolished their
Yeah.
old theaters and buildings like these, unfortunately. And I agree, especially in its location, right when you cross the tracks, it's the first thing you see, right?
Yeah.
Everybody sees it on the train when they go by, and that definitely would have been very unfortunate if that had happened. But the city being able to step in and financially take care of it all these years and making improvements into it, what outside of capital improvements, what does the city take care of? When it
Part of the
comes to
utilities? Do we do any of
things
that?
like that?
So pretty much there is an ask that goes back yearly, and that goes back to basically operation of the system. And I think it's somewhere around $100,000 is what.
Well, we usually get 62, I believe, and this year we asked for eight. I don't have my notes with me, but 80 something, so.
Yeah, so they're in the $80,000 range that we contribute back. Besides that, everything we take care of the lights, the air conditioning, everything major
Service,
inside that building. If there's a major breakdown of something, we take care of it. When you see small things like a television screen or a Coke machine or concession supplies, that's usually on the theater to provide all that.
Sure.
And they pay all the utilities, and the cost behind the shows are all generated through whatever the Sooner Theater does, or the cost of being in that show. So basically, we're on the line just to make sure that the building's preserved, capital projects, and we do throw over a small portion of that to help them take care of. Because how many full-time employees do you have over there?
Well, right now
Yeah.
we have,
Question.
we're trying, we're looking. We have 4 full-time right now, and then a couple of part-times.
As you can see, and anybody that's running a business or gets paid knows that $80,000 does not go really far, especially when you're talking about paying for employees.
And so they're not having to pay rent to the city, or is there a formal lease of any kind?
There's a formal lease. These leases for the cultural centers, or some of them go back to the 80s. So this one would probably somewhere in the 90s.
I think it might have even been before that.
Do you have your dollar for the year?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are leases that go along with these buildings, and it's a group, and they have all these groups have boards that report back to the park board. They give us yearly reports, financials, and everything that goes through that.
Okay. I definitely met with Jennifer and been to many shows at the theater over the years, and then toured it more recently, and to specifically look at some of the issues that we're talking about here. And I definitely believe it's a major community asset and something worth investing in. And I think it's something I hope to kind of see be the theme of Norman Forward 2 proposal is reinvestment into existing facilities we have like this, and the depot and the firehouse and others that were listed. And then definitely wanting to address the issues of ADA access to make sure all kids and performers have the opportunity to be involved in the programs. One of the questions about expansion of the theater, the space would be, are we able to do it in a way that doesn't negatively impact the historic architecture and look of it? So if we closed Jones and we expanded it to the side, that it would be something that matches the way the theater looks.
And that would be the whole purpose of going out there and master planning this. So you would hire an We would look for a historical theater architect or an architect that specializes in that type of thing.
I don't know if we could even find those stones, but
He would be able to tell us what the possibilities are and what's the best route to go, if it's going Jones or if it's best to go toward, pursue Mr. Roberts' area, what would be the best for it. But, and he would also be able to tell us if they're able to match that stone or find stone that's close to that, or we would want to keep up the architectural.
Yeah,
It's all going out there. We would want it to match. We would want it to look like it has been there.
I think we want to keep the
100 years just like the
facade
building.
the same, and then also in the house, we wouldn't expand the performance, the seating and the balcony. You can't really do anything with that because you're, acoustically and everything in that space, and then it's good. I think all the support stuff that we want to do, a good example when I was starting is we drove up to Miami and look at the Coleman Theater. They have incorporated an entire block of their downtown. So you start walking into their wing space, and it just keeps on going because they've taken up, but you still think you're walking into the Coleman Theater to that, but they have done a great job as far as, back of house, and it still has that look, that very iconic architecture, but it's really cool when you can take over some other buildings and you don't even know what this hand's doing because everything's going on. I think the look, we would definitely preserve that facade, that's sort of the iconic look, but then enhance it, so.
yes, and I think if we were able to acquire that building next to it, I think that would be ideal. Just because it's already attached to it and it's 2-story, and I suppose there'd be the opportunity to maybe even expand that building.
And that's what Jason showed, the back of the
yeah.
building, there's that whole area that's not even a building, there's just the property. They have, they park cars back behind there, Mr. Roberts pulled a couple of cars and says there's room, if you get that building, only the front is 2 stories, and it's 1 story, and it tapers to nothing with the staircase coming up the backside, so there's a lot of room with that one building alone. And if we go to Jones and expand,
They
you
say
go,
that's what's there now, or that's what would be there.
that's there now, now is, you got the back, see the backside?
So we could extend the building back, we could even go up if we wanted to.
Because they're parallel, the theater gets bigger as you go towards the fly tower in the back, whereas that gets smaller as you go towards the exit door, so they're kind
Oh,
of
that's
crossing
funny.
each other. And if you bring that one up, you gain all sorts of space. Jennifer dreams of having, multi-story sets
Well, yeah.
from the side, or ways to project actors from the side. So if you have that upper story access back at the fly tower, that'd be awesome.
There's lots of dreams, but it's the ADA, it's the can't get into the office to buy a ticket. You can't get onto the stage if you're in a wheelchair. You cannot get into the dressing room if you have any kind of disability. I mean, it's just, I've told a few of you that have come over, it really hit me hard when we had 2 students last year in wheelchairs. And I had invited a guest, a Tony Award-winning, did I tell you this story?
Yes, you did.
I'd invited a Tony Award-winning actress. She won the Tony for the musical Oklahoma. She was Ada Wanny. I'd invited her, got so excited, and didn't think about she's in a wheelchair. How am I getting her on stage? But we've turned it around, and I think she could be the kickoff performer if all this, before Norman Forward 2. And we'll have her perform, and we'll show the renderings, and we'll have the kids sing Oklahoma with her, and we're going to turn it into something amazing.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's leading this, obviously, is making sure it's accessible to everyone.
So to get on the stage currently, someone in a wheelchair would have to go out the front door, to the side, down Jones, to the back alleyway, and come in that back
Coming through the
door. So it's like, hey,
garage
let's
door
take
where we
you around the
take,
block.
where we take the trash, it's just not,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just not, yeah.
Well, I hate to see Jones close because I use it as a shortcut all the time. But I do think it would be necessary probably with a 2-way, and I'd be interested to see how realigning it would work. And I think that parking is probably heavily used by theater
Yeah,
patrons
definitely.
too. So we'd want to.
And we own that lot. That's the city
Yeah,
lot.
it's one of the only free lots
It's amazing.
downtown too.
It's a good one.
And so I'm very interested in a plan for sure of how to go forward, and I think it's a great candidate for a Norman Forward 2 discussion as far as when we're talking about large funding, if we're trying to do it all at once. But even if it's not a Norman Forward 2 thing, having a master plan that could be implemented over time would be valuable as well. So I'm all for
Thank you.
figuring out what that might cost.
Councilmember Grant?
Oh, yeah. I was gonna ask, did you have an idea of what a master plan for Sooner Theater is gonna cost?
So our past two master plans that we've done, and it's taken some negotiating. So Andrew's master plan was right at $50,000. Westwood master plan, once we got them understanding what we were asking for, it got, I think it was 54,000. So we're probably looking somewhere in the $50,000 range, I would think, to get a concept out there. So when you start concepting it, I mean, there's a lot of work to go into it. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to go out there and provide surveys or topos or we have a general idea where all the utilities are. So we think that we can get a pretty good idea of what a expansion would look like and the cost that would go along with that within that $50,000.
Okay, and then would you say the other plans mentioned, like a wish list of items, those would probably be in a similar range and?
I think those would be smaller, and some of those, quite frankly, when you start talking about Edwards Park and the depot, I think the depot, you probably need an architect on that. Some of the ideas that go along with that would be mainly landscaping. If you start talking about Edwards Park or James Garner Plaza over there, if we're trying to get that readied up, but there's not a whole lot to do out at the historical house. I think that could relatively probably be done, maybe be even do a master plan in-house with who we have here. And then I think firehouse will probably be a little bit more complicated, but once again, you're not talking as much scope as this one. This one's a larger scope. So I think that
Didn't they do a master plan? 'Cause I know they had that expansion.
they're kind of working, they're piecemealing it
They
right
need some
together. You don't
schematics
have a
right now.
master plan.
Their board, and they have an architect on their board, so they're kind of in-house doing some wish list graphics, but it's not really a full-blown master plan. This is the largest and most complicated building we have on the docket. Like Firehouse already has an elevator, so you can get to the second floor, there's nowhere near the square footage. The depot just had a part of it rebuilt less than 10 years ago when we solved all those issues. So, you know, they could all use some help, but this is the most complicated thing we would tackle. So it'd probably have the highest ticket.
And also thinking about that collection of master plans, would you be asking us for funding after fiscal year 26 or?
I think part of that, we're meeting with Norman Art Council and see what their path forward is through that. So if we think that we know that they're going to throw in $50,000 for a feasibility study for their new center, and maybe we can get together and maybe we can get together with them and throw in a little bit more along with it and get some more places encumbered into that master plan.
So maybe team up with them.
Yep.
Yeah, I like the idea of expansion, whatever that looks like. I'd love to be able to see shows that I think could happen there, but for lack of space don't, like comedy, concerts, film fest, or just screening of films that are, traveling through on a different circuit.
Yeah, we would love to get back to some of that. We used to have a really healthy concert series, and there's just not, I mean, we have to look at, right now, we just had to look at space on the calendar, and if we had a scene shop, we could drop that screen and show a film, because that's the number one. I want to show films. There's a lot of places we can see concerts, but it would be so cool to bring some films back to that. There's just,
My dad wants you to bring back Criss Cross. He always tells me.
that was so good. We've had some incredible concerts and
You're doing Rocky Horror.
comedians.
You're doing Rocky Horror.
We are doing Rocky Horror this year. Picture. But that's the deal, is when you've got sets up there and you're building in the space and you're tearing down in the space, and then you don't have any free weekends. You don't have any free nights to add programming. So we had to really think, what is our strength right now? What are we really good at? And it's these kids. And, even now we can't get them all on that stage on the calendar. There's no way. We'd have to have a couple more months in the year, but we're doing the best we can. But you're right. I'd love to see the films. We did started with the AFI's Top 100. We used to do film series, and just did the classics. And then we moved to art and independent films. And a couple of them did well, and then people stopped showing up because it's about $500 to $1,000 each showing. So if you don't sell all those tickets, you're spending a lot of money that you can't get back. So wouldn't that be nice?
Wood, you gotta get the balcony back though, get those lights.
We got to get the balcony back.
That's a few more seats, so,
Yeah.
anyway. Councilmember Hinkle, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so the building that is Mr. Roberts right now that's next door is 2 stories?
Correct. As an apartment on the second floor, and then the bottom floor is retail.
It's like a half, the second floor is like half.
Yeah, you can see like at the back, it doesn't, the second floor doesn't extend all the way to the back of their building. It gets.
I'm just thinking if, going back to ADA, if that building, if we were to acquire it, using that front part as like a lobby and then having an elevator that goes up to the mezzanine on the second floor of the front of the theater. I don't know, I was just thinking if that was something that could be considered in the master
Yeah,
plan.
and I think that's, we've got to talk to our architect, and I think we'd have those options. We would like to see option A and option B, and even if there's an option C, which incorporates both, what it would look like.
Awesome. Well, I love Sooner Theater. Anything we can do to keep it a vibrant part of our community and bring more things to it, I'm 100% for it.
Thank you.
For sure.
And the other beauty of it is, as you explained to me when we were watching the Cats cast, of who the different kids were in there. Baseball players to the kids that hide in the shadows. Everybody gets to be in the deal. And that's the cool thing about it. So,
That's the reason I like saying Norman, it's not just a sports town.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, just allowing more space and allowing more kids. You think, oh, can we grow any more? But we can. There's more kids out there that need this. It's not just fun and games and let's put on a show. It's a lot deeper than that. And so I think this goes further than just even our ADA issues. It's there's a hunger for it out there. And I know a lot of you know this, but just last year, we gave $62,000 in scholarships. We will never turn away a kid because they can't afford it. But that's money that could have gone in the, so it's growing. And enrollment is up this year, so we figured the scholarships will be up as well. But it's a
I
great
can
place, and
attest it does the girls, it did my girls good too. It taught them things that they wouldn't have learned in the classroom and taught them all kinds of other stuff that's just fun to do. And they were part of something.
Well, I appreciate y'all inviting me and actually talking about this and taking it. You can tell all of you care. And I had the privilege of being on the Leadership Oklahoma last year and touring all these different communities. And I am so proud of Norman and so proud. We held the Oklahoma Leadership Forum last week at our studio space. And it was just it was so fun to show them around and have them downtown and come look at the theater and look at the studio. And I'm just proud of how y'all take care of these organizations. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
One wild idea is if we're expanding the building on both sides, maybe even if we make the balcony seats real balcony seats, since they're fake balcony. They're cut out to make it look like there's balcony.
On the sides,
What if
the
we-
boxes.
If
On
we
the
were
boxes.
expanding the
wall.
sides of the building.
I say the balcony is real. I've been up there, man.
The box
No,
seats.
The box seats, yeah, the
Yeah.
box seats.
Yeah, box
Okay.
seats. That was one thing when we were in there.
People
I was
always
joking
ask
about.
about it. They
So I
want
don't
to
know if we were thinking grandiose about it.
Yeah.
That's one idea to throw in there. But
Nice.
what would be the next steps here? Would we be seeing a budget request in the upcoming June budget for this item by itself, or just part of the Sooner Theater request?
I would imagine this would be, and this is probably where we need to know a little bit. I would think it would come out of the hotel motel tax portion that we have. Correct, Anthony? Is that where with the capital portion of it?
I was thinking you were talking about the capital fund.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would do. I mean, we've done.
or we could do it out of the capital fund, of course. But it would end up in your requests.
Yeah. it'd
We
be
would
standalone.
request it and it would go through our regular process.
So I know the capital fund's been stressed. to say the least, so I don't know which one would be better, but, or more able or more appropriate, but, so just to be clear though, this would be an addition to the regular yearly request we get from, this would be for the development of a
Master plan.
master plan.
So we just treat it like a capital project, and then they sit with the organization from, well, the same way Firehouse and everyone else does.
Okay with that?
So would it be appropriate to use the hotel funds? Because, in our packet, I did see the huge increase in our hotel fund.
You theoretically could. Now, again, the room tax is usually more geared toward projects that would increase outside tourism, where Sooner Theater is more internal, thinking of Norman. But again, is it legal? Yes, it's legal. You could.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of seeking out the master plan, without a doubt. I've been talking with Jennifer, and just, it was really heartwarming and also heartbreaking, due to the growth and how much she really wants to be able to provide more kids, because, she shared with me that it's more than just a show for these kids. It's really self-esteem building, and it's really important for the kids.
Thank you.
Yes,
I was just gonna say, and I could see an expanded and enhanced theater being a more of a tourist attraction, potentially.
And I mean,
Really is.
yeah, quite honestly, the reason it popped in my head, so when you start doing these junior shows, that I know that going back to Nemo Junior, there was a handful of people that were driving 50 miles
yeah.
a day to
We
come
have-
participate in that.
And we have students in the summer camps that have come from Alaska, Colorado, Texas, Kansas, Vermont. I mean, they've come from all over to take the summer camps. And we serve, students from all over the metro. They drive in from Shawnee and Ada and Guthrie and Edmond and.
Well, and depending on the amount of capital that we're able to put through this, like a Norman Forward too, but it's also possible if we do it correctly, we might be able to get traveling shows that come through there, not the grandiose Broadway shows that the Civic Center necessarily, but I mean, we can get pretty dang close, I think, to get landing a few of those shows occasionally.
Just getting a
the
few
beauty-
concerts back, or like you
Yeah.
said, comedians back. Gosh, we loved our comedy shows.
love
But
for Norman to have a
the
comedy
beauty of
festival.
that theater is its intimacy. We're doing those big things that the Civic Center does. It's in the wrong place. It's too much. And this is so tiny that it's cool. You're sitting there with them and you're part of the whole deal.
Very intimate.
Yeah, it's pretty
Get
cool.
your
Yeah.
tickets now for Into the Woods, starts next Friday. Adult cast,
It's
full
adults.
adult cast.
It's unbelievable. It's so good.
They usually are.
Sondheim's
It's you just
tricky.
wouldn't believe it. But yeah, it reminded me when you were saying the intimacy. We had Jeff Daniels, the actor, who also, were you there for that? He played music, told stories, and you felt like you were just sitting in the living room with him. You were right there. And we would love to see a few of those back.
So you mentioned Oklahoma, so I saw Oklahoma there whenever I was probably like in maybe third grade, so, yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it brings back memories, Sooner Theater.
Even Asleep at the Wheel, that was 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, we had them several times. Boy, they were good. They're still good.
They're still around?
Oh, yeah. They're,
They must be
yeah.
crustier.
The leader died, right? Last year, didn't one guy? Big tall guy.
No, I hope not.
Sorry.
Anyway,
They're great.
any more questions from council for Sooner Theater? Thank you for all my vote's for taking Dan's money from him.
Yeah, sorry, Dan.
He's in the room, guard against
He
that.
gets guest tax.
If you use room tax, it would not be the tourism portion, it would be the parks portion.
The parks portion.
Yep.
Okay.
That
We don't
was-
need Dan's money.
We would gladly take it if he would offer. it.
Yeah. Hold on to it.
We'll do that. Well, let's move on to item number 2.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Discussion regarding monthly review and expenditure report.
So in the interest of time, I will just say, we had a fairly good October sales tax remittance. October is the mystery month in my mind because that is when the nebulous sales tax holiday credit or debit is taken or credited to our account for, you know, theoretically what's supposed to happen is that retailers who did not charge sales tax, remember the sales tax holiday only applies at the state level. But retailers are taking the full 8.25%. And the state is supposed to be crediting back what would be the city's portion. But it's unknown how much is actually the city's portion because retailers don't record their revenues for that weekend, they record them for the month. So there's some formula that the Oklahoma Tax Commission does to calculate that credit for each city in the state of Oklahoma. And I don't know, it's quite possible that it works in our favor. I just don't know, and nobody knows. We've talked to this, you know, with every other city in the state and we just don't know. So that is always this cloud over the October check, and just know that October, that back to school month of August, is a really big month. It's the second largest sales tax month of the year. And so, but we did have a fairly good return. We grew about 1.3% over last year. The only other thing I tried to touch on, and Councilmember Holman last meeting requested this information about the room tax. And I will say that the room tax report that you get in your monthly packet does not include the short-term rentals that are recorded to a separate account. But I did include the short-term rentals on this presentation that's in your packet for this month. The actual collections are given numerically in that table. And then the total collections are given in the graph that you see there. So our room tax, including short-term rentals, has grown about 28% in the first quarter of fiscal year 25 above where we were in fiscal year 24. So that's a great thing. You'll recall that I continue to be skeptical about the impact of the SEC on our overall sales tax revenues. But I did think there'd be an impact in the room tax. And I do think that we're seeing that. Our largest hotel property had a 7-figure gross in the month of September, and that has never happened in Norman's history. So again, calling no names, quoting no numbers, but it was a really good month. Unfortunately, you know, when we compare October to October, because there were more home games last year than there are this year, I'm kind of, you know, we'll see. But again, with the Alabama game in November, that should be another good month. So, yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, we got 7 home games this year. But this year we had 4 straight Saturdays and all in the same month too, so I guess we'll see that next month. See
Well,
what
one
that-
was in August, so we get 3.
Yeah, right, it was the last day of August, I guess, the day of our retreat, that Friday. So we had 4 in a row though, so including the biggest one, of course, with Tennessee and all that.
I don't think the Maine Black Bears are going to bring many people.
No, I don't know how many South Carolina will bring this weekend, but
They
maybe we'll
returned
see.
tickets already. So.
But it'll be interesting to see that 4 in a row like that happening. And then,
Stephen, take the meeting, would you?
oh, sure.
You can stay here.
I guess I can just, it is interesting to see how significantly it's increased though. And if that's not just because we increased the tax, but also because we're actually seeing that much more activity or visitors.
Now, one thing I was surprised to notice, and I wanted to draw to your attention, the patterns within the year. Obviously, room taxes are not just 8.125% per month. It's not that clean. There are up months and down months because of the weather and because of activities over the course of the year that happen every year. But I was surprised that the fall is not the largest, you know, the football season is not the largest revenue months. It's the spring, it's the graduations, and I did ask Dan to be here to talk about why that occurs. But that's a fairly consistent pattern that we have seen over the years that I just noticed here. But we have certainly seen that this year. And we'll see what happens when we get into the spring of 2025. But those percentages that you see each year are kind of an important figure to note what's going on.
I would guess that in the spring, like you said, graduations and stuff, but there's
Festivals,
football is 6 or 7 days out of the whole year, right?
6 or 7 weekends.
And maybe people stay 2 or 3 nights, whatever, but thinking in the spring, like baseball team and the whole baseball, they're playing games every week, and then softball team and all the different sports that play in the spring have games all the time, and all the festivals and events that we have and stuff. So, yeah, I would initially have thought, yeah, game day, but then it makes sense that the spring would be bigger.
Yes, sir.
Now, remind when we increased the hotel tax.
It was effective in July of 23.
Okay.
I asked this to visit Norman last time when Dalton was here representing, to see if we could get some of the hotel numbers for our surrounding communities. Can we see is it possible for us to get numbers for some of the surrounding communities to kind of see what activities in Norman are increasing in our surrounding areas?
Yes, we can certainly ask them for their room tax collections, and we would just have to be anecdotally
Sure.
kind of connecting with what's going on in Norman, but yes, we can.
I would just be curious if, like you said, graduations and things like that, if they see a big spike in that too because of whatever. But I know that we didn't have the capacity necessarily to bring all of the Tennessee fans and have them stay in Norman. A lot of them stayed in Oklahoma City. So I'm just curious what kind of bleed off we have to our surrounding communities.
Do you think you could, is that what you were saying, Anthony, is that there may not be a direct cause and effect to that
It would be
question?
difficult for us to make that assumption. We would just be, in Oklahoma City, their collections were up this month and ours happened to be up as well. But was that because of the OU football game, or was that because of the horse show in Oklahoma City? It would be, it'd be difficult we could just anecdotally say it happened to be up.
Well, and with the numbers that they can pull from credit card data and things like that in the area that they're asking their peers for, I feel like we can probably cross-reference it to, I agree, it'll be anecdotal to some extent, but I feel like we could probably get kind of close if we compare some of
It
the
would be
data.
nice to know that if we affect something, if we do something that should make this, that should be pretty.
Well, and if it identifies an incentive for growth, that would be my goal.
Yes, sir.
I guess on that, like Oklahoma City, they have a proposal to raise theirs on the ballot.
I think it
They already did it. Okay, couldn't remember if it was on the November upcoming ballot. So they did raise theirs as well.
9.75% is what they're at now.
That's their hotel tax.
That's their
visitor
guest tax. Yep.
Who is this?
What?
Who is
Oklahoma City?
Visit up 9.75%. Oklahoma City, they went up from 5.5 to that.
So that was quite a leap.
What did we do again?
We went from 5 to 8.
Okay.
So I think that was part of what you and others talked about when we were talking about raising ours, is that others will probably do the same thing if we do it. And so, and I did have a question too about the grocery tax impact, if that's been, I do want to hear from Dan as well, but if there was any update on any noticeable impact that's had.
Again, we have been just doing some anecdotal checking. I assigned my staff to go to some stores and buy some groceries and keep the receipts and see if it was being recorded properly. After some bumps in the road, and we had to contact some retailers to remind them to reprogram their computers and that sort of thing, pretty much we're seeing compliance now. It seems to be working out okay, at least from that anecdotal reporting.
And so the concern was that retailers, especially smaller ones, may just eliminate the whole tax for anything, any food stuff. And instead of just eliminating the state portion, which I think there was definitely easy to have confusion about that, I think.
Right.
And whether they even had the ability to change it that way. So, that's good to hear though, that at least so far.
Now, I will say, as far as what shows up on the receipts is all over the map.
Sure.
Some of them say sales tax 2, some of them say, groceries, so, it's just all over the map. But then when you do the math, it seems to be working out okay.
Very good.
Other questions or thoughts, or
Did Dan have anything?
I just wanted to reiterate, I know Councilmember Grant's brought this up a couple times, but exploring the taxing the guest tax on RV sites and things like that. I just wanna,
on gasoline?
no, on RV sites.
Oh, yeah.
Just wanna make sure that we say that out loud in this meeting, since we're kinda,
That would take a change.
It does take a
Vote.
vote.
I'll defer to Rick here, but I think that's what I have been told is that guest tax on RVs, this may have been Catherine before you, Rick. It's because the guest tax ordinance reads rooms, a charge per room, that they were not interpreting an RV as a room. And so to add the tax to the room, it would take a vote of the people to change that.
That's right. To add RVs to it.
Well, I'm definitely supportive of putting that on a ballot with other things. Okay, but I had mixed things. I think it was maybe during retreat that I heard it didn't need to be a vote, but,
Well, anytime there's a taxing measure, we have to go to a vote of the people.
okay.
And there's a trick that some governments play where they call it a fee as opposed to a tax. Some fees wouldn't have to be, but taxes would. But the difficulty is gonna come in with regard to how do you enforce it. So that's gonna be the issue with the tax, is gonna be how do you enforce it.
So a vote, so it's legally binding, I guess.
Is the only other thing would be the interpretation of a room.
Right.
Would an RV be interpreted as a room that they're staying in?
could you just change the language to say room or pad side, or
Yeah, I don't know.
what's the same?
Okay, that change to requires a vote, yeah.
Well, yeah, would love to put it on our election calendar planning.
Councilmember Holman, what were you asking of Dan?
Anthony mentioned,
Okay.
asked Dan to come on if you had anything you wanted to add to.
Well,
Any
I will
usage?
just, real quickly, because I know we're going over time here, so anecdotally, talking to my counterpart at Visit OKC, that Tennessee weekend, he was thrilled. Their hotel numbers were up, occupancy rates, everything were up there too. So we definitely see compression, and they love it that we've moved to the SEC and have these big games. I've worked with Sarah a little bit with the city's Placer software, and so I'm still trying to play with or get the final kind of interpretations of it. But we were looking at leakage of, Josh, your question of how much when they come here, we definitely capture a bunch of it, but they're also Oklahoma City and other communities are capturing a bunch too with their entertainment districts and Paseo and Midtown, all those places. So certainly we're seeing kind of, we can track where they're coming to and from, and so that's interesting. I'm have a call tomorrow, early next week, with our software. It's never been done before, so we like to do things for the first time in Norman. Zartico's our software. Oklahoma City is also a customer, and so we're meeting to see if they can combine both our datas to do a regional report for the Tennessee game, where each visitor is a little white dot. And so you do a time lapse to see, like, you get a big sun of glow when it's on the stadium, and then so that'll be really interesting. We'll share that when we have it. But Anthony, your questions to me kind of were spring, and surprised that was higher. For football weekends, that's definitely our highest occupancy. We get, I guess, graduation and parents' weekends, you get that too. But spring is much higher. You guys hit it on the head. So we've got not only the last two classes, you had double-digit growth in the freshman classes as largest ever. And so more freshman classes mean more parents coming. Throughout the summer, more visits. I was surprised to see the growth in June, July, August. Not surprised, but happy to see that. You get a lot of visits there, Camp Crimson, others. You get parents coming, and our trends with students always are well, not always. They are trending more to Texas. A high percentage of Texas students, which mean those parents are coming more than what an Oklahoma parent would. So that's some of it. You also have the SEC here as well. But in this spring, we had Big 12 Women's Gymnastics Championships. And then as Jason, we've had YFAC come on board. The tournaments there with fadeaway hoops and marquee hoops tournaments in April. We had softball tournaments and just the increase in the guest tax that the citizens voted on to create the sports commission, I think is having a tremendous impact there. And I have a list here of everything that's gone through, multi-pages long, at just these youth sports events, and they're coming, they're filling our hotels, and they're shopping and eating. And so I think that can be attributed. The guest tax started, increase was July 1 of 23, Anthony, is when that started coming. We had YFAC come on board with Jason, that was January of.
Yeah, it was late January when we started the leagues. We didn't host tournaments until
The spring, right?
mid-February is when we had that first. You know, I just remember that because we had a parking lot that went nuts, and I got crazy emails from everybody. Yeah, it was mid-February when we had our first tournament, and it kind of rolled after that.
So that, I mean, I think that we have seen a tremendous impact from that, and thanks to you all for putting it on the ballot and for the citizens for voting for it, but it's doing just what we thought it would do, and so I attribute a lot to that, but it's a multitude of factors there, and you guys touched on many of them.
Is it hotel stays in Norman? Is it Thursday through Saturday night? Is it spread out throughout the week? Is it?
I could pull that up for you to have
Oh,
exact
just have
numbers,
this.
but I look at it frequently, and
Okay.
so our occupancy and average daily rates, other things, peaks Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Our soft days are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It starts to pick up Tuesday and Wednesday, but Sunday, Monday nights are our slowest time frames there.
And would you say we need more hotel rooms?
Yeah, occupancy has kind of stayed flat or consistent, so where the growth is coming from is rate right now. But we anticipate occupancy trending up significantly over the next few years, and we certainly could use, there are a few hotels in the pipeline. We could use a few more, but that's, private developers come on and look at the pro formas there. There are a couple exciting projects that you all know about that are in the pipeline. So those will be great. And what we really need too is more meeting space. So I didn't mention, but we also have Embassy filled with conferences and conventions. And right now, it's just really trying to find what are the few windows of openings that they have, because they are filled to the brim most of the time. So more meeting space would mean we could go sell and bring more groups as well. And those are great too, because when you bring a conference or convention, for the most part, you've got corporate credit cards, which that's not their money, it's the companies. They spend a lot more than, and we love all of the visitors that come, but if you're a teacher's conference or a pastor's conference or something that's less money, or even sometimes with our youth sports, depending on the team that's coming, they're maybe eating sandwiches or they may be going to the ranch. You just never know there, but corporate cards are always spending money out there.
I know I've asked you this before, but I can never remember the correct way to answer it when I'm asked. So can you tell us why or how NCED goes into the numbers of our occupancy, hotel occupancy, or why it's excluded from?
Well, so right now I have two ways of tracking it. The former way is our STAR report, STR, and that is a self-reported deal by the hotels. They report into STR and we get a monthly report looking at it, and NCED currently reports into that, but it goes for a while there, a couple years they weren't, and then they were. But that hotel it's 940-something rooms. We've got about 3,000 here in Norman, so 30% of our inventory. When the postal students stay, they take up 600-plus rooms, so that helps occupancy, but they don't pay anything, so it tanks our average daily rate. If you're paying and they're exempt from taxes anyway. If you don't have the postal students here, then we're not a market where, unless football games or parents' weekends, you're filling that big of a property with no amenities around it. So then it tanks our occupancy as well. So when you look at the STAR report, it's a little misleading with that. They don't operate really as a private hotel would anyway with their postal employees and what they're built for. So we also look at our Zartico numbers. That's through a system called Key Data that's actually what's credit card swiped and booked and done. It has about 50% of the hotel rooms reported into it, excluded NCD. So I think that's a better kind of way for us to track things and see, and it always is. Occupancy and ADR are higher than what's on the STAR report there. So we kind of track both and look at it, but NCD, if the new hotels are looking at it, when I get calls, I always tell them it's a little misleading because of that property. So when you look at revenue per available room is a big deal, RevPAR, they like to see a certain number, and if we can exclude NCD, then it really makes Norman a more attractive and spot for that, and it shows the need. If you look at it without digging too deep, then it's a little misleading. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
And we track the room tax that they do collect. When it's not governmental business, then they do collect the room tax, and it's very sporadic. And it kind of, in my experience, kind of depends on who the manager is, about how aggressive they are about attracting non-postal service business. But sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
They let us host a luchador wrestling match in their gymnasium one time when they were, really open to the public.
That was fun.
So it was fun. So
That was Marriott still, I believe, is the operator. So they're now operated by a company called Airmark, which is not as well known as a hotel operator. And their focus is more postal students than outside business right now.
So, does the Noun do conferences? I know it's not the same amount of rooms as Embassy.
The Noun does meetings. They have, you guys have all been, they do functions and meetings, lunches and special events, but they don't have the space for conferences. You need the bigger room for general sessions and meals, and then you need breakout space as well. We have 2 conference spaces with NCD and Embassy. What we're missing is convention space with the expo, high ceiling, column-free, bay doors where you could do the trade show and then transition into the general sessions and breakouts and other things.
Which was one of the projects we did not include in Norman Forward.
It got cut out at the last minute of Norman Ford 1.
Wasn't there talk about expanding some court space and using that as
Oh, the,
overflow for
that's what I
conventions?
heard about for YFAC.
Yeah.
We've had some very, very initial conversations about possibly doing that. But yes, it makes more sense for there to be expo space that we use a few times a year for basketball games instead of us building a whole lot more gyms to attract those very large events which are out there, which we're only qualifying for mid-size events right now for basketball. But they are interested in Norman, we just need more court space.
So a potential avenue there. I don't really know what the outlook of getting another Embassy type hotel is, so.
Well, I know when Marriott was running it, they seemed to be much more interested in making a real effort to make it a more public-facing hotel. And they got rid of the guard shack, which isn't even manned. When we had the retreat, there was nobody there, so I was like, why?
It was at one time.
But it served as like a barrier for like I think people just passing by they're not like, oh, let's pull into this hotel. It's like, we can't go in there. It looks like a government facility it's restricted. And so I was kind of excited when Marriott was running it because they were seemingly more proactive, and now it's seemingly gone back to being more just geared towards the Postal Service, which is fine. I mean, that's what it was built for, and it brings people here, so. But I was interested in if, well, I think on, outside of tourism and whatnot, the city comparison. And Norman is the only city, Moore got 50.50%, but we're at 1.60%. All the rest of the cities clocked in at a negative for this month, and then we're still negative for the year to year, but looks pretty promising that it's been improving.
It was a good month.
And some of the cities, OKC is, over 2% negative for the year in their projections, it looks like. We're at negative 0.65, but for this month, yeah, we were leading the comparable cities, which was a good news. And then I also noticed it looks like to me that this October number is the highest month that we've had in the last 5 years. It's might be really close with this one in FY '24, but it looks like one of the, if not the
October's
highest
always
month
a
we've
good
had
month.
in the last 5 years since 2019, according to that chart. So just another, I think, pretty good sign that for whatever reason people are,
Go February.
spending money in Norman and having good events, and it's good to see. So, and I think too, even more impressive again that not only that negative number that we've seen the last 3 months, but negative over all-time record highs, but now this month being 1.6% growth, I guess, over record highs from last year and the year before. So it's pretty exciting to see, I think.
But it may be temporary.
You never know. That's the truth.
Well, I would keep waiting.
But as Councilman, overall, it is a good economy, and that's what, that's what we should be hanging our hat on.
Any other questions for Anthony, or? Yeah. All right, well, let's go home. What time is the train?
I gotta pick up kids.
Thanks, Dan.
See you guys, I'm off to soccer practice.
All right.
Is that all the reason you came back?